to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next is approval of the agenda. Are there any additions or changes?
Well, this isn't an agenda item, but I have a question. I have this usual packet that starts at my end of the table, and normally there's something for the initials of each
Yep.
board member,
We'll fix that, yeah.
and that isn't there.
Let me find it and we'll print that on there.
So is there a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved. I'll second that.
That's a tie.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Approval of the minutes, we have two sessions, May 28th board meeting and the June 4th work group session. Do you have a chance to review those?
I'll move approval.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Public comment period. Is there anybody that wishes to address the board this morning? Okay, moving on to the consent agenda. We have 3 items on it: approving the claims, the peddler's license, and the change of employment for Olivia. And I think we all got that in our packet, so looking for a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I move approval of consent agenda.
I'll second it.
Any further discussion?
Other than just a comment that I think Olivia's been doing a very good job.
I was gonna say the same thing. She's just done excellent with all the flood relief and things that counties, okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed. Action items. Number 1, consider the approval for interim use permit to operate a seasonal storage facility business as a startup business for Mark and Dana Carnes of Hoka Township. I don't know. Aaron, do you want to address this, please?
Morning, Commissioners.
Morning.
So the Planning Commission is recommending approval of an interim use permit for a startup business for Mark Cairns. The business would be essentially a large shed that the applicant anticipates winter storage for boats, RVs, cars, and other large non-household items. He also plans to offer summer leases that would accommodate boat trailers or RVs, large trailer or vehicles that are not being used for a longer period of time. His lease term he anticipates a lease term of 6 months, and his hours of operation would be from 8 to 8. He'd be available 7 days a week, but he would be open by appointment only. He would accept limited daily check-in and check-out, but he does not prefer that. He anticipates capacity for 22 to 24 spots per season. That's based on a standard 20-foot boat, but that number would vary depending on the type and size of items that his customers wish to store. The township, Hoka Township and the city of Hoka both submitted letters of non-opposition, I suppose, to the project. Planning Commission recommended approval with 5 conditions attached. And before I move to those, I guess I would ask if there's any questions about the proposal.
Any questions for Aaron on the, we received all the findings and everything in the board packet.
Yeah, we got it in the packet. We looked at it.
Okay, what are the conditions, Aaron?
6 conditions.
Or 6?
I should get, well, I'll get to it when I get to number 6, I'm sorry. Condition number 1, the permittee shall comply with all federal, state, and local laws and regulations. Condition number 2, the permit shall be subject to renewal at 5-year intervals. The renewal process shall be initiated by the permittee and may be done administratively. No public hearing is required for renewal unless it is determined by the zoning administrator or the county board that a hearing is necessary. In the event it is determined that a hearing is necessary, the hearing will take place only after the permittee submits an application to the county. Condition number 3, the permit shall expire if it is not renewed at or near 5-year intervals. The permit shall expire at such time that Mark and or Dana Cairns no longer own and maintain homestead status on the property described in the application. Condition number 4, the hours of operation shall be 8 a.m. through 8 p.m., Sunday through Saturday, 7 days a week. Condition number 5, the maximum number of employees working on site shall not exceed 2 at any one time. And condition number 6, the building shall be set back 50 feet from all parcel lines, including the parcel to the north under co-ownership. And I did follow up with the applicant on that, and his proposed location was 53 feet from where he understands the property line to be.
Okay, good. Any questions? We'll look for a motion to approve the interim use permit.
I'll make a motion to approve the interim use permit
With the recommended conditions.
with the recommendations as presented.
Is there a second?
Second.
Further discussion or questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you, Aaron.
Thank you.
The next one is, I don't know if Brian's here, yes, he
Yep.
is. Consider approval for the low bid for the replacement of a box culvert on Dotseth Road in Caledonia Township. Brian?
Good morning, Commissioners.
Good morning.
Yeah, I am here today to recommend approval of contract to Mineral Construction in the amount of $199,977.75 for project number SAP 028-599-096. This is a replacement of a bridge structure, box culvert, over on Dotseth Road in Caledonia Township. We had 6 bidders on the project. The bid did come in over the estimate by 10.52%. There's various reasons for that, but from what I am hearing from other counties and the state, the numbers that we got actually were very good numbers. So I recommend approval. The plan is to replace this structure in September or October of this year, so it'll be fall.
Does that affect harvest?
It's a relatively short detour around it. It's should be a 3-week, 4-week project, so it's not a full-blown bridge project. So I think it'll have minimal impacts on the farmer.
What's the proposed start date on the project?
I believe it is the Tuesday after Labor Day is the official date that we have in the proposal. What I'm hearing is that they probably will not be able to get the box culvert until mid to late October. So we will probably need to delay the start date until the box is ready. So mid-October, late October start, and then complete within a few weeks of that.
The number of dairy farms in that area tells me that that start time and the time frame makes an extra potentially 2 miles for every load of corn silage.
That's probably about right.
That's their harvest time,
Yep.
big time.
Yep. And what we usually do is we'll, if we do have a big farmer that's going to be impacted, we let them know this is when we plan on starting. They can get their silage off beforehand, or they can wait till afterwards.
Late planting this year beforehand is probably not an option.
That may not be an option. Yeah.
September's the earliest you can start?
we probably won't get the box until October, so there's no reason to start before the structure's
Oh.
ready to get put in, so.
Yeah, and I mean, I know some of these people pretty well. I mean, that box culvert is a half mile from where I live.
Yep.
And that's not a real good time for doing that. It really isn't.
Yep.
Would it be better to push it back to later, or?
Grain harvest is not nearly as important to those people
As
as
silage.
silage harvest, quite frankly.
I'm just curious, Brian, we have 3 companies in La Crescent that do that kind of work. Why the long wait for a box culvert?
Pretty much all the suppliers are backed up until that date. You know, they
Big
need, they
problem
need to
is-
be state certified culverts that meet state and federal requirements. The state inspects them prior to them being delivered. So there's a limited number of manufacturers that can build them. Crest out of La Crescent is one of them that can build them and has. I have not spoken with Crest directly, but I have spoken with contractors that said that they are backed up as well as far as getting boxes.
The problem is they're not be able to get the cement
Yeah,
up from the river.
there's
you know.
various reasons why the culverts are being backed up as far as building them. So now, I don't know exactly who Minnow is planning on using for their culverts. Maybe they can get them quicker. You know,
Well, I'm
time-
wondering whether Al's concrete
they-
does.
nope, they're not
Certified.
approved by the state to
You gotta be.
provide them. You know, time wise, you know, pushing it back, if that helps the farmer, you know, that's or the farmers, that's a possibility. The problem also though is if you push it back, if weather gets cold, you can't get turf established. You can continue inspections and continuing. It's a
No,
liability for the contractor waiting. There is some, that waterway going below the structure is gonna get cleaned out some, so that way they have better drainage. So you have a waterway that's gonna be torn up as well.
what's the fall between the bottom of that box culvert and a quarter mile away under 44?
It is
I
very,
think you told me 3 inches.
it is
one
very
day.
flat.
Yeah, it's almost billiard table flat. There just isn't any fall there.
It is, yes.
Now, I'm going to think out of the box a little bit, and you're, as an engineer, you're not going to like this. What's the worst-case scenario if that, because of the timeline problem, what's the worst-case scenario if that project were put back a year? So it could be timed a little bit better for the people that have to deal with the road.
I mean, structurally, there's no major issues if we did wait a year. The biggest issue that way just becomes, you know, first off, is the contractor gonna,
He's not gonna hold that.
are they gonna
You'd have
agree
to
to that?
rebid it.
They might not.
I know. I understand the problem. It's gotta be rebid and all that sort of thing. But the timing is just,
Yeah.
especially considering the weather issues that they've had so far this year, timing is kind of bad right now
Yeah.
for doing that job in
Yeah, it happens almost
September.
every, yeah.
And I understand the problem with October. Something happens, you don't get done, and then you've got a real problem.
Yeah.
So
I will
that's
let-
why I asked, what's the worst thing that can happen if we just put it back a year?
Yeah, well, you know, one is, you know, the contractor, my guess is that the contractor probably would honor this and delay it a year, and we can do a stop work order and push it back. Would the material cost change where it would impact something there? That potential's there. Staffing wise, we need to have, you know, our staffs line up for other projects next year, so if we start pushing the project back, it does affect our staff. I would love to do every project and, you know, every bridge project where it doesn't affect farmers in the spring plant and the fall harvest.
I know. I know.
It is tough because we have a limited construction season in this part of the U.S. So I definitely understand your concerns. I know that we run into this issue every year, to be honest.
Yeah.
You know, there's always structures that are being replaced at inconvenient times. So I guess, I mean, ultimately this is up to the board, and I can definitely work with the landowners in the township as far as a better schedule, if there is a better schedule.
Well, could you start by pushing the person who makes the culvert? See if there's a way to expedite that?
Yes and no. We've already got phone calls before the project even bid, from multiple suppliers saying, so you know, your start date is this date, your culverts aren't gonna be coming till at least a month and a half later if we are the supplier for your project. So they were giving a heads up in advance to say you might need to delay. That's part of the reason with the cost. Some projects are not getting bids, some bids are coming in 50-60% plus over the estimate. This delay in culverts is not a new issue. It's been an ongoing issue the last couple of years. We don't see it getting better in the next year or two, unfortunately. So that's just something we need to deal with now. So if we thought it was going to get better, the price were going to get better, we would have delayed bidding it out. But
Or there's a possibility you might not get it in October either.
there is a possibility we might not get it until beginning of November. And then we need to start looking at, do we think we can get it in before winter, before frost sets in too deep? I think we probably could, but you never know how the winter is going to line up.
Would it be better, Fred, if we could try to push that back to November for your constituents?
Well, sure, it'd be better for the people that have to use the road for silage hauling by November. They're done hauling silage, but long since, actually. They've done hauling silage probably the middle of September. Well, this year you don't know. It might be late September.
So if they're done hauling silage, then the issue is the,
Time, I suppose.
well,
Freeze up.
he's already said it's gonna be October before we do it, so silage is done by then?
Probably.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it depends on this year. It's maybe later.
Well, depends on if global warming kicks in again and we wind up with a late frost, why, yeah, maybe so, but
I guess the best thing to do is to push it back as much as you can and work with the neighbors around there that are affected by it. I don't know.
yeah.
It's
Have you been in contact with the neighbors about this project? They're aware that we're gonna do it, or we're planning on doing it?
Some of the neighbors are aware. Are all of the neighbors aware? I do not know. And timing wise, I'm not sure who's aware of what for the timings. So I don't want to say yes that everyone that's affected is aware.
I mean, from a timing point of view, there's a conflict any time of the year during the summer, right? I mean, planting in the spring,
well,
Taking hay off
summer's the best
periodically.
time. I mean, you could, but we understand it needs to be done, and it'll be nice when it's done. It's just the inconvenience but like for harvest is big deal. That's big. It's more pressure. You want to get efficiency and be done. But
Yep, I never like to do the projects in late September through most of October and stuff, but
Yeah.
you can't always avoid that.
middle of the summer's better. But
I think
you can't do it all in the middle of
I
summer.
think we're looking to just approve the low bid at this time and have Brian work with the farmers and the company as far as the timing.
Yeah, we'll do the
As
best we
much-
can that way, and
I mean, we know we have to do the project, but
Yeah, well, the only reason I brought that up for discussion was that it might make a difference in what we do here if we wound up postponing it a year. That's why I asked that question. But if the consensus is that go this year and try to delay it as much as we can, well, then obviously we need to approve the bid. So,
well, we're looking for a motion to approve the bid at this point, the low bid.
but if we approve it, do we lose control? I mean, if the contractor gets all the materials, we can't stop him from starting.
the contract is what the contract is.
Right.
Yes, so.
The start date on the contract is
Yep.
September 1st?
I don't have the full contract by me, but I believe it is the Tuesday after Labor Day,
Labor Day, okay.
whatever date that would be.
So by approving it, we do take a risk as far as.
Yep.
He shows up and starts and we don't
Yeah.
have anything to say.
How much realistic control do we have, or do you have, as county engineer, over that start date?
Like I said, officially the contractor can start. Now, this contractor that's the low bid, and pretty much all the contractors we work with are very good at trying to make adjustments to fit our schedule.
Yeah.
There's times when they just don't have, they need to keep going. They're not gonna stop and have their guys sit around for a few weeks waiting for
Yeah.
this project to start by late. But most of them have enough work that they can move from one project to another and keep going. So I think the odds are pretty good that we can delay the start back to mid-October or potentially a little bit beyond that. But, you know, officially the contractor can start as soon as that start date hits.
Well, people not in dairy farming don't understand how critical that corn silage time is. That's probably really the most critical time of the year to be able to get stuff done expediently. And I doubt if the contractor understood that when they put down a September 1st start date. So I think that they would logically be amenable to working with that. Harvest is always in October and November, right? Not for a dairy farmer. So that's where the problem is, and you've got two dairies right there, and you've got other people that are involved in dairy farming who do use that road, so it makes a difference. Was there a motion?
Hasn't been a motion asked.
There isn't a motion at this point.
I'll move approval of the contract.
With any, I suppose you can't do any
No,
exceptions.
you can't. You'd like to.
I'll second Fred's motion.
Further discussion?
If you could-
All in,
I would just mention that
okay.
Brian's heard the concern, so whether we can include it in the motion or not is really irrelevant, because I think he'll follow up on
Yeah,
what we're.
I'm sure he will.
You get where we're coming from, so.
Oh, absolutely.
If you could push it back as far as you can, that'd be appreciated.
Yep, absolutely.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And our,
There's actually 3 dairy
Shall we
farms very close. to
go with the-
There's that road.
Pass on the other 2 action items and bring those on.
I think in the essence of time, we have Mr. Hauge from Southeast Minnesota EMS, Emergency Medical Services. John, would you and Heather mind waiting till after that? Okay. Go ahead, John.
I'm gonna message Jay and see if he's.
Good
morning.
Message Jay.
Morning.
Morning, John.
Thank you for allowing me to come today. My name is Don Hauge. I represent the Southeast Minnesota EMS. We are one of 8 regional EMS agencies in the state, and we represent the 11 county southeast area. Commissioner Walter has been a board member of mine since 2011, and she's very proactive for EMS. Over the years, our funding comes from 2 places. It comes from a state appropriation, and it also comes from seatbelt fines. Seatbelt fines throughout the state used to be very good. Over the last few years, seatbelt compliance has gone from 74% up to about 95%. And while that's great for the public and the safety and reduction in fatalities, it's been bad for our funding and supporting our regional EMS folks. I did put a graph on your handout today, and the bottom 2 lines is the ones I'd really like you to look at. You can see that the state appropriation is in green, and that has never gone up. It has only gone down over the past 30 years. The blue line is the seatbelt fines. And you can see it got pretty good in 2010, 2011, and that's when the primary seatbelt law came into effect. So police officers could stop somebody for not wearing their seatbelt. And the seatbelt fine, I want to make sure you understand, usually when you get a seatbelt fine, it's probably about $125 or so. The part we get 90% of $25 base fee. The $100 is a court fee. So it's not as big as one might think. The other 10% goes to the state patrol for their educational purposes. So our board, our joint powers board, which is made up of one commissioner from each county that we represent, has struggled with this financial problem for a number of years. We go to the legislature time and time again we are turned down as far as getting any extra funding. And we're not asking for a lot from the legislature. This year we asked for $50,000, so $400,000 for the 8 regions, split up as $50,000. So we're not asking a ton of money from the state, but yet we get left out again this year. So last year our board decided we have to do something. We were having a hard time making our ends meet even for our office. We're a small office. We're 2 full-time employees and we have 1 administrative assistant that works a couple days a week. So it's not a huge staff. And they decided to go to each of their counties and ask for an annual appropriation of $5,000. So that would give us a $55,000 bump in our budget. For 2019, we did send it out late. I know it was late. It was past your budget process, and but we still sent it out, and we did get funding from each of the counties except Houston. And Commissioner Walter explained why you didn't fund that, or one reason is that you already give money to your EMS agencies, which I'm very appreciative of, and I'm sure they are as well. But we aren't the EMS agency. We're here to support the EMS agencies in the 11 county area. Our primary function is education, making sure our first responders and our basic life support ambulance services are educated so that when you call 911, you get the best care that you could possibly get. In Houston County, I believe I put something in the handout, the last handout, of the services that do use some of our services that we provide. We have a program called the Medical Direction Consortium, which actually provides a medical director for ambulance services and first responders. We send an instructor out 5 times a year to do education with those services. As far as the ambulance service goes, the only one I think is Spring Grove. Spring Grove is the ambulance service that we have under that consortium. They cannot operate without a medical director. And since the days of medical directors living in the small towns, it wasn't so hard to get a medical director. Now that we don't have docs living in the small towns, that's a real problem. So we started that program in '94, and we currently have 17 ambulance services in that program. If we were to have to shut down, the moment we shut down, those 17 ambulance services have to shut down as well until they can figure out who's going to be their medical director. So that affects the public safety. We're trying to keep those things going, and it's not easy. Volunteerism is down as well, as you well know. We're trying to make things easier for those services and first responder groups. We even have fire departments that are struggling to find firemen, and that didn't used to be the case either. There used to be a long list of people who wanted to join that. So we also do a program called the Critical Incident Stress Management, and a lot of these services are just people like you and I. They go out and they see a lot of things that they didn't dream they'd ever see, being a housewife, a hardware worker, a farmer, whatever the case may be. But they get put into situations that are very tough mentally, and we provide a service that goes out and tries to take away some of that stress, let them talk through their feelings, those kinds of things. Trying to keep people on the services rather than quitting, because one bad event can take out 2 or 3 people very easily. It's a tough business when you're a volunteer. You're doing this out of your, just your dedication to your community, and then have to see those kind of things. It happens. I've been on it for 38 years doing this stuff, so I understand the mental anguishes that we see. So that's a program that we heavily support. It doesn't cost our services anything. And our people that are on our team, all they get paid is their mileage. So it's a very low-cost program. There's a lot of things, I don't know how much time I have, but there's a lot of programs on here I just wanted to highlight if you have any questions on any of them. But what we're asking for is for Houston County to fund the $5,000 appropriation in your budget process for 2020. We would appreciate that greatly, as we are asking all the other counties once again to fund the $5,000 appropriation, make it an annual appropriation, until such time that the state comes through and gives us more money or we find another funding source. Yeah.
At the state, when you tried to get more state money, to whom do you direct your
But we have
requests?
we have a legislative consultant that we have hired. A bunch of the regional programs hired a consultant, and we really work through her to work with the legislators.
And
we
it's under
also-
the Department of Human Services,
Oh, yes, Department of Human Services.
not Public Safety.
Yep, right.
Okay.
Sorry, I misunderstood.
No, that's fine. I happened to be at a regional radio board meeting yesterday, and it's Tim Gabrielson is your chair, and
Yep.
he was very adamant about the lack of
Funding.
funding from the state, and Mitch Lentz was in the same meeting as was Marshall Ward, so all of them familiar with our smaller towns and smaller counties, trying to keep these things active with less and less money, so.
They're all very good board members. They've been with us a while and very supportive. Ken Brown from Olmsted County too.
Yeah, he was,
Ken spoke at our district meeting about the same lack of funding, that we just can't get it from the state.
he would have normally been there yesterday too, but that's the meeting, but yeah.
And I can
I
tell you,
know
the
Ken.
$55,000, we got 50,000 for 2019, and it's made a world of difference for us to keep our programs going, keep our staff paid, and you know, just doing the things that we do. We're a government entity. We're not nonprofit, but we're a government entity. And we do raise our own funds too. We put on programs, we do charge, we're an educational program as well. So I mean, we do charge for some of those things as well. But you need a lot of money to try and fund all these programs and help these volunteers. And first responders, you know, you hate to have them doing pancake breakfasts and everything with all the volunteering they do. It's very hard to do. So anything we can do to help, so. Any questions?
The Green Line EMS support that has gone down, that's statewide, Metro and all.
Yep, we all get the same funds. Metro gets the same funds as we do, even though they have a much larger population. Our funds that we get are divided by 8 always. So there's 8 regions.
Okay.
So, and we all have, other than Southwest, we all have 10, 11 counties that we support. Southwest has like 19 for some reason, but they're pretty spread out.
So we should lobby hard our representatives to,
That we thought would help. We all, our board definitely lobbied heavily for the funding from the state, but at the last minute it was.
Yeah, the last 2 years, the last minute, we've gotten dropped out. I don't
Right
know,
at the last
and we don't
minute.
have an explanation of why.
well,
You know, we never get an explanation of why. So, and I thought this time we really lobbied hard. We had EMS providers contacting their legislators. All of them say they support us, but when it comes down to the
Money.
final decisions, it just doesn't happen.
yeah.
But there's two levels of support here. One is the ambulance, emergency services entities in each community. The Caledonia Ambulance Service is funded through the townships in the city, as well as fundraisers and whatnot. The funding for this entity, I mean, you're a support entity, you're not actually providing the services,
Right,
so
right.
there's two different
Yeah,
funding
yeah.
mechanisms here, as far as that's concerned,
Yeah,
both of which are,
yeah,
important.
they are required to have continuing education, and EMS provides all that.
At this point, with us soon beginning budgeting, I guess what we can do today simply is to put an X by it for our budget process
And look at it.
And I don't want you to take your support of your EMS, local EMS agencies away. That's not why I'm here at all.
No,
I wanna make sure you leave
Understand
that
that.
in place, you
Yep.
know, and thank you for doing that, because not all counties do it. Some do, but some don't.
Yep.
So I appreciate that very much, because they need that funding as well.
Right.
But we as a support agency are asking your support as well.
Thanks.
Sounds good.
Anything
Thank
else?
you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. We'll see you Thursday.
Okay.
Okay, Jeff, do we wanna go into our closed session, or do we have time to put Heather and John and he, they're a little long-winded sometimes?
Well, John and Heather have been here for a while. Do we have to have the closed session at 10? Is there a reason for it?
Yeah, we're.
I think Jay
We're
is
meeting
flexible.
with-
I did message and said we were running a little late. I haven't heard back from him yet.
Is that
unless
okay
he-
with you, Sam?
Whatever you want to when you're, I have to be in court by 11, so we can do it.
Well, what John's got, is that gonna take long, or?
No.
All right.
Okay, John, talk fast.
John always talks fast.
Good morning.
Morning, John.
So this morning we have a resolution of support for a Towards Zero Death Grant proposal that we're completing through our Public Health Division. That's what's before the board. We have historically been involved in the Towards Zero Death program. Currently, we don't have a current grant, so we're wanting to get back into that. Talked about this a little bit with our committee this morning, and it's kind of based on a variety of different activities that are related to traffic safety. Mandatory in this round of grants is distracted driving and different educational efforts and enforcement and things like that with regard to distracted driving. That's where some of this new handheld device, you need to be hands-free, I think as of sometime in July when that. August 1st, okay. At the committee, I made a misstatement. I said that the source of funds was Department of Health. It's not. It's the Minnesota Office of Traffic Safety is the funding source. So, this isn't something that would require any match or financial commitment from the county, and it would not require any adjustments in our current staffing. It fits within the scope of what we expect for our health educator to be involved in. That's how we've achieved these activities and participation in this project in the past. So, do you have anything you want to add, Heather?
No, are there any questions, first of all, from?
If you're successful in the grant, you get it and then disperse it to the various policing agencies?
Actually, no, can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Okay, so this is an education-based grant, so the enforcement agencies, all of our law enforcement partners have the option to, apply for enforcement funding. That enforces their overtime staff time to do these enhanced enforcement activities. So we wouldn't be a pass-through to pay for that, that would be separate. But enforcement is a partner along with education, emergency services, emergency trauma services, as well as our county engineer and engineering and Brian. So we do have local collaborative partners throughout the county that work with a similar goal in mind of reducing traffic fatalities, but how they utilize their funds is a little bit different.
I would like to see enforcement underlined in the program.
I would agree, and it's interesting, the data the gentleman shared, Houston County, I would say is not in that 90% seatbelt usage. We're a little bit lower than that, but it is getting better. But part of the work with this would be some observational seatbelt use surveys, and we work collaboratively with the Sheriff's Department and other local law enforcement agencies who are doing those enhanced enforcement to kind of track that. One example, I guess, is we have a every other month, Fillmore Houston Safe Roads Coalition meeting, and we do a traffic safety review of any crashes or unfortunate traffic deaths that were resulted from the previous meeting. And we look at different things that, I know in Fillmore County, for example, they've made adjustments to different things with signage and roadways. So if there's a trend that appears over time, that's something that we can just start to track. Run off the road, that sort of thing. Deer crashes, we see that a lot, obviously here at certain times of the year.
Heather,
Just so you know, Jack, last week in Houston, enforcement was going on quite heavily.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Heather, is this a block grant or a competitive grant?
It is a
in town.
competitive grant, so historically, we would have applications maybe from 10 to 15,000. It really depends on what funding is available and what the funding requests are that the Office of Traffic Safety receives. So it's generally in that ballpark, but it is competitive.
We'd anticipate an ask of in the neighborhood of $10,000 to $12,000.
Well, John talked to us this morning in committee about this, and I don't see a downside to it, not involving county revenue. So I would make a motion to apply for the grant.
I'll second it.
Further discussion?
If we apply for the grant, this isn't a carry-on mandate kind of thing, that they take the money away and we gotta continue it?
No.
Okay.
It would just be for that grant period, so it would be up to us if we choose to reapply. If something changes with our priorities or with staffing, we make that decision on an annual basis, and we bring that to the board.
But if the state eliminates the grant funding, if
No,
there's no
we
more
would.
grant money, we don't have to
We just don't
continue the
have to.
program.
If
That's-
they, for whatever reason, would pull that money back, then our obligation to fulfill those activities.
Yep.
Yep.
The other thing I'd note is this is, what we have in front of you today is a resolution of support for applying for the grant.
Doesn't mean-
Assuming it gets funded, we'll have a contract in front of you that you can look at and make sure that you feel comfortable with that.
This is just for the application. Yeah.
Correct.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed.
And we'll need a signed resolution, so.
Yep, I'll take care of that.
Okay,
I'll get
excellent,
that too.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good one.
Yeah, you too.
At this time, we need a motion to go into closed session.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, at this time,
And to clarify, it's a closed session pursuant to statute 13D 05 for attorney-client privilege discussion.
Yeah, it's regarding the district court's decision in Krukow versus Houston County, 28 CB 18477.
Thank you, Sam.
we can
Sam?
resume our,
Yes, resume the
Our agenda.
and that puts us at the resolution 1921 for the Minlars grant payment. So you have the text of the grant in front of you. In short, as you're aware with the final legislation out of the state for the year, there's been a set aside of money to reimburse the counties and all of the districts that are involved in the MNLARS processing to cover some of the added expense and extra work, et cetera, that going through that, trying to be diplomatic, debacle, has caused on everyone. And so our portion, just had it in front of me, sorry. Our portion has been determined, and that's right. Yeah, and so the formula is based off of a little bit off of everybody gets a little, and a little bit off of a workload based calculation formula. So the amount for Houston County comes out to $32,000 dollars and change, and this resolution would accept that amount of money from the state, and the caveat to that is basically the signature that we won't go back at the state for more. That this solves it and resolves it, essentially.
Are other counties pretty much automatically going with it, do you know?
I don't know that they're automatically going with it, but it sounds, I haven't heard anybody protesting it. This is the result that, the organization was looking for, so it's all been.
Yeah, okay,
Well-
that was my basic question is, do the people that work with this deem that this is a fair?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
quite
okay.
frankly, I
And-
don't know how we calculated any different.
Well, in talking with Donna, it is it's a good number, you know, as far as when you figure out overtime costs and things like that, it's, I think some counties probably didn't get as much as it maybe would have cost them, but with our workload and such, I think it's a fair number for us, so.
Carol, where will that 32,000 go?
Where would you like it to go?
Commissioner
It's
Webb?
not going there.
No, but.
Jack wants it for water damage.
Yeah,
It
basement.
probably should go into the general,
Mhm.
the unallocated, not necessarily into the license center, because it is like for past expenditures.
Mhm.
You might want to look immediately before using it for something else to find out if there are items in that department that they would need.
But it would go into the general fund at this time, and then we can discuss after we have more information what needs to be repaid.
Well, we've talked about some ways of enhancing customers' support down there with, you know, facility change, desk change, and things like that, so we'll look at, something there, but,
Maybe that's all.
yeah. But, yeah, general fund for now, and then we can look at whether we designate it to
Okay.
a project there.
So we need a motion to approve the resolution 1921.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay.
Just a curiosity question. Does Polly come and then look at the videotape to put,
That's why I'm scribbling furiously.
that's
I'll
what you're
finish the rest of it. Yeah, I told her rather than waiting to come back and forth that I'd finish the rest of the meeting. And
Oh, I
we'll see
really
how
have to
good you
check
are.
the minutes now. Okay. I didn't even have that because I printed off my
Oh,
agenda
yeah,
ahead of time.
Yep, so that was it. We got their appointments done.
Okay, discussion items, I guess we're up to administrator updates.
Yep, we had a good session with Enterprise Rental Car the other day, last week, and program is coming along. We're still waiting for our vehicles to arrive. We have the first 5 vehicles that we ordered have been shipped from the factory, but anywhere from 4 to 8 weeks for delivery, and the 2 patrol vehicles go to the sub-vendor to get all the equipment and stuff added on anyway. So the other 3 will come straight here. And then we have ordered the first 3 vehicles for the highway department, and it'll be we'll see how fast they get delivered. Hopefully we'll get them here by the end of the year to get things started with 2019 money, but they're on their way as well, so. Working out some details with Enterprise on the WEX program to get the fuel cards and such started. We'll have that sent to them here soon. And one of the concerns that came up previously was the use of Quick Trip and a discount and such there. Enterprise, on our behalf, has reached out to Quick Trip, and they've agreed to reimburse a 3-cent per gallon discount on anything that we buy at Quick Trip. And so it's a little extra accounting step for us to send them a receipt for how much gas we bought there. But they've agreed to reimburse that, so we will still get a Quick Trip discount, if you will, because the company that is built into the WEX program for discounts is ExxonMobil, and there's just not, gas stations in this area with that, so. But otherwise, all of the local vendors that we normally use, Enterprises reached out to, many of which were already on their system. They've been helping the last couple of them get on their system. So we're not the only Enterprise users in the area, so from a vehicle maintenance standpoint, we're still using all the same vendors locally that we've used in the past for tire changes and oil changes and such, so.
Good.
Aside from, dealer warranty work and things, that'll go to one of the appropriate dealer, so. And just a reminder, I will be out of town next week, but I'll have my phone and whatnot if you need to get a hold of me, so. And so no work group session next week, but the Board of Appeal and Equalization is Tuesday night at 6 p.m., so we have that coming up. Cindy and Donna are prepping for that, and anything else? I think that's what I have for you today.
Commissioner reports. Fred, would you like to start?
Do I have a choice?
Yeah, I could have Jack start this time.
After I did that to you for a year, I get my just desserts. Okay. Well, the only meeting that I've attended has been the Extension Committee meeting a week ago, and that was basically normal business, so I really don't have anything to report on that. The Farmer Roundtable, the steering committee for that group will meet tomorrow and figure out what went good and what went bad, and hopefully come up with a plan for further meetings.
That was about the meeting in Spring Grove at
Yeah.
the church.
Yeah. Now, we've got, as a group, we have to analyze that, figure out what we may want to do differently, and move on. It's obviously a thing that's gotten some positive feedback. I think it'll continue. More information next week.
Mr. Burns,
I have nothing to report.
nothing?
Not yet. Wait till next week.
Oh.
2 weeks.
Did you want me to report something?
That's
Well, I
fine.
was, since I wasn't here for the last meeting official meeting, I haven't totally heard an update on our highway department.
Oh,
Oh, I can cover that.
Oh, okay.
So,
Well, let Jeff answer then. Okay, we'll skip you, Bob.
Thank you.
we'll go back to you, Jeff.
Then
or-
back to you.
yeah, keep going, I'll cover it at
Okay.
the end.
Okay, I had a conference call with Bluff Country, HRA here last Thursday, I believe it was. Nothing new to report. It's pretty slow right now. As you know, it's hard to get matching funds down here for this program because we're considered a slow growth area, so there hasn't been a whole lot going on right now yet, so. And then, I went to SEMCAC last night in St. Charles. Got to meet the new executive director. His name is Doug Grout. He actually has a house in Brownsville. He was working up in the cities, and he had a house up there too, but he's gonna move back to his house in Brownsville and sell that in the cities. But he actually worked for SEMCAC back in 93 to 98. That was his second job out of college, so he's familiar with the area, so. Then from there he went to Brainerd, and then he moved to the city, so he's just kinda making a circle and coming back down here, so. So we got to meet him and welcomed him into the community, so. I guess that's it as far as my committee reports. I just feel that we, as a board, should sooner rather than later look into, Brian Van Gorp's role on Board of Adjustment. I think we should look into that issue, given what's happened, so just wanted to make that public. That's all.
Jack?
I had a regional radio board meeting yesterday in Rochester, and I guess the biggest issue is that they're trying to upgrade GIS in the area, and that's going to involve considerable time and effort on the part of each county, so need to sit down with Jeff and the sheriff and can't remember the gentleman's name in the sheriff's department.
Mark Olson.
Mark Olson, and see where and how we can address this for Houston County, but it's interesting that, and one of the board members pointed this out, that he can be on his cell phone and they can tell exactly where he is, but our system that the state has been using can't. So, and they want to get it to the point where if you're in Jones dormitory at Winona State on the 3rd floor in room 217, they can pinpoint that that's where the emergency is. So that's the goal. So anyway, I've gathered as much information as I could yesterday that I could understand and pass it by people that.
Of course, if he's on the 3rd floor, would it be 317
Well, that's-
instead of 217?
See, and that's what.
You know?
What's funny about that is that the gentleman who used that example yesterday did the same thing. He said to, so that's where I got it from. Because I was going to say to Marcia, how could it be room 2 on the 3rd floor? Thank you. But then I would mention we had the EDA gathering at the Wired Rooster. I don't think we've had a meeting since then to discuss that, but I thought it went well. Bob and Fred were both there, and
I heard there was 60 people there.
yeah,
They had a nice crowd.
yeah, they had a nice crowd, and
Allison said a good thing I didn't show up because there wouldn't have been any room.
but
Some chairs in the very
Was
front.
there?
I think the presentation was very informative, again, I think Allison did a nice job of coordinating that. So that's all I've got.
Jack, just a question with regard to your communications issue. This is an expansion on the broadband that we put in already?
Well, thanks for the question, Bob.
I'm just curious.
No, they're still trying to build out broadband, and that involves AT&T. This is a different entity
Okay.
of improving what presently exists in the state system to coordinate GIS or locations. So it is separate, but I suppose it's tied in a way because it may require additional towers or whatever, but again,
They'd have to be able to track every different kind of phone then, was the gist of it.
yeah, because,
Verizon, AT&T, all the different.
yeah, and, you know, as we're all aware, it used to be that the phone was on the kitchen wall, and, you know, and now the phone's all over the place, and find out where it is, where they're calling from, and so.
Thanks.
That's it.
Sounds good. Thought it was gonna be another Minlar system.
No.
Do a little better research on this one, huh? I had extension meeting, which Fred already alluded to, and also went to the solid waste annual meeting, and I gave all my books to, my annual reports to Julie for her file, because she's very active with that group now. And that's all I had.
All right, so back to me for a couple things. So Highway Department, land use, as you know, we had the 3 conditions on there. We're working on resolving those. Have submitted the conditional use permit update to the city, and we'll work with Casey to get that processed and looked at. So I haven't heard anything back from him yet, so we'll work with him on that. The contractor that we have hired to do the environmental assessment survey has been in contact, and Brian is getting that scheduled with Mr. Rogish through his attorney. So I think next week they will be out to do that. So that's where things are at with those conditions. So, and then you mentioned GIS came up. Just wanted to say the team has been working very closely with Schneider. We've set up a Thursday morning teleconference with them, and have had that now a couple of weeks now, and so a very routine contact with Schneider to kind of work down the list of our GIS issues with them. One of the things he's been working on is with Mark Olson in the GIS layer parcel mapping for police districts. One of the biggest headaches for them in that whole process is where La Crescent specifically has done annexation by just an absolute, when you pull up, when you zoom in, it's an absolute checkerboard of which properties have been annexed. And so the process of making it clear where you are on that map, which jurisdiction you're under, so when a call comes into 911, we know which side of the street they're on, and whether that's county, whether that's city, you know, who gets rolled out to a response. And unfortunately, it's not a very clean cut. If you're on the east side of the road, you're the city. If you're on the west, you're the county. It's every third house is it's just a absolute
It is.
checkerboard.
When you get on that west side, you know, this house is in township, this house is in the city,
Exactly.
and
Yeah.
they're neighbors.
Yep, yeah, so, it's, so they've been working on clearing that up and are making good progress, but it is a lot of work to make that all fix.
It's as bad a case of spot zoning as you'll ever see.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Spot annexation. That's-
Well, okay,
Yeah.
spot
Yeah.
annexation.
Yeah, it is.
so, but we're getting, good sport and good teamwork to get through all of that, so. And they've been, some issues with the, you know, it's, again, you have different systems and different contractors as you go from our GIS beacon stuff into what the EMS system is using, and so, but they've been very good about, you know, Schneider's willing to get on the phone with the other contractor and make sure that everybody's talking the same language and same files and stuff, so.
Good.
Yep, okay.
Anything else to come before the board?
Make a motion to adjourn.
No public comment?
I don't have public
Oh,
to
God.
comment. Craig, you got anything?
No public.
Just Craig.
Abandoned us.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?